that we have a privilege to hear tonight from Deborah Lyons. She served our country as the ambassador to Israel and serves now in such an important role at this crucial time. Please, on behalf of our whole congregation, let's welcome Special Envoy Lyons.
I've been practicing. Hag Samer, happy Purim, everyone. I've got a ways to go. I wanted to wear a costume tonight, but I was told by my very bossy deputy that I had to dress as a special envoy. So this is it. I was offered a unicorn onesie, but it might have impacted a little bit my words to you. But you may understand why I am on my best behavior tonight, because when you become a special envoy, especially for a role as huge as this one is, and especially right now, you know you need to have good people with you. So you search far and wide for a strong and very capable number two, who often thinks they're number one. And sure enough, you find them right here at Temple Sinai. So ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to take a moment to acknowledge the great theft that I made in hiring Rachel Cherkoff. The best hire the federal government has made in years, right there. I don't say that every day when she's directing me, but I am thankful for every minute that she does. We are a wonderful pair. And I'm sure, Rabbi, so much of what she brought with her to Ottawa, and as we travel across the country, she received here from this incredible congregation, so thank you all for that. I want to, of course, thank Rabbi Dolgun for this amazing invitation tonight, and the other clergy and the incredible cantors. As I was listening, I was thinking, I have to take this back with me for those tough days ahead, and remember the calm and peace I feel as I listen to the prayers and to the cantors. I want to also, of course, acknowledge, as a representative of the federal government, it's always great to look out across the country and realize that you've got great partners, and we certainly have that in Ontario's provincial government right now. And I just want to express gratitude to Robin. You're the MPP for Eglinton Lawrence, who I know has been a long-standing ally of Ontario's Jewish community, and I certainly picked that up in her words tonight. But most of all, as in everything we do these days, most of all, I want to give my love and respect and ongoing support to the family of Judith Weinstein and her husband, Gadi Haggai. Reading about Judith's life was inspiring. Her work teaching children with special needs and mindfulness to children who'd been traumatized by rocket fire. And I met a number of them when I was the ambassador in Israel, when I visited the different kibbutzes down along the fence and heard about 12-year-old and 14-year-olds who still, in the middle of the night, crawled into bed with their parents because of that fear that remained in their heads. So I can imagine the importance of the work that Judith was doing. Her compassion and her poetry, and as a mother and a grandmother too, I understand her incredible dedication to peace. I think for the other grandmothers and grandfathers here tonight, as magnificent as it is to have our own children and go through that day-to-day excitement of raising them, there is something incredibly magical about the grandchildren. it somehow shows you the passage of time and how important it is that we continue to create the best world we possibly can for them. And that's what Judith was doing. May Judith and Gadi's memories be a blessing, and all of those whom we lost. But Judy's mother, Marilyn, I had a chance to spend some time talking to your son tonight as well, the filmmaker. And I want to say to you, I just have to say that when the rabbi started speaking, Marilyn turned to her son and slapped him, told him to be quiet. You never stop being a mother. But to that end, I want to say, having met your son tonight and knowing about Judith, you raise good children, girl. You raise good children. And as Robin was saying, those words tonight from Judith, now more than ever, kindness and tolerance with an open heart. How prescient, how forward-thinking for Judith to give us that message. And I want you to know that I'm taking that, I wrote it down as I heard her words, I'm taking it back to our office. We have 2 offices, one in Global Affairs and one in Heritage. We are going to have a calligraphy done of her message, and we are going to frame it, and Judith's spirit will be in the 2 offices of the Special Envoy. Now, as the rabbi said, Purim doesn't feel much like a celebration this year. The world feels like an avalanche of grief and fear and even confusion. And just in this last 1 week, a Jewish film festival in Hamilton was canceled. We found out that a Toronto city councillor had been threatened, anti-Jewish death threats, a vile anti-Semitic cartoon appeared in the press. Fortunately, the outrage, and from the editors themselves, caused it to be taken down very quickly. And I regret to say that while attending a recent vote in the House of Commons, my own chief of staff, my own deputy, who grew up here in Temple Sinai, as I said, was even harassed on Parliament Hill by people chanting, "All Zionists are racist." It can feel hopeless sometimes these days. And I know that our community remains in an extended state of mourning and agonizing grief, both because of the horrific massacre on October 7th. I think we all remember when we woke up that morning and either turned on the television or looked at our phones. I remember looking at my phone and sitting in a chair, and then 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was still in that chair, still on my phone. And I knew what lay ahead. But I could never have imagined that in addition to the ongoing captivity of the hostages trapped in the tunnels of Gaza, that we were also going to have to endure an unprecedented reaction of denials, justification, and even celebrations of these events. I always knew this job would be difficult. But frankly, I would say to all the young people here, my experience has been in my career that it is the most difficult jobs that are almost always the most meaningful. So do not shy away from them. But when I did accept the job in September, no one could have anticipated the horrors of October 7th. As Robin was saying, the brutal Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel have affected all of us deeply. I, like so many of you, carry in my heart an indescribable pain for the children, the women, and the men of all ages. During my time as Canadian ambassador to Israel, I spent 4 wonderful years developing personal connections, friendships, along with lasting and meaningful relationships. And I, unfortunately, like so many of you, lost some friends on October 7th. And even more disturbing, as we've said, while the Jewish community should have had time to grieve all over the world, we should have had time to grieve, instead have been forced to grapple with this new wave of alarming anti-Semitism here in Canada. I don't want to say a new wave, I want to say an unprecedented wave. So I began this job on October 16th and immediately started traveling across the country to meet with Jewish communities. We traveled from Halifax to Vancouver, and we will do it again. This job must be where the community is. I think this is my 8th trip to Toronto. I will be here much more often. We had to meet with the communities, in the synagogues, with students, with federations, and with other organizations and professionals from every field. The loneliness and the abandonment felt by the Jewish community across Canada and the paralysis to act from so many of our leaders at all levels is disheartening. I should have chosen a word much stronger than disheartening. Of course, I don't need to tell you all this. I know that you're feeling it. And so I am honored to be one of the voices acting on your behalf, calling on those political, community, faith, and even business leaders to unflinchingly and clearly speak out against hatred in our streets, disinformation online, intimidation in our centers of learning, and anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism on the world stage. Across Canada, I have also met with police chiefs and hate crimes units, provincial ministers, mayors, university presidents and faculty, social media platform executives, and most particularly educators. And some are already doing incredible work. Many, even most, want to help. But some are afraid, discomforted, even bewildered, or they simply don't know how to start. I have made clear to everyone I meet just how important it is to step up and speak out and to stop the tide of hate through education, through enforcement, and maybe even through further legislation. I tell them, and I tell myself every day, the only thing we cannot be found guilty of is indifference. And sadly, I must emphasize and continue to do so everywhere that the safety and the security of Canada's Jewish community, over half of which, of course, is here in Toronto, the safety of this community here in Toronto and across Canada is a nonpartisan and non-negotiable issue. We cannot let it be. The Jewish community in Canada has the right to be supported. The Jewish community in Canada has the right to be safe. The Jewish community in Canada has the right to move freely, to let their children go off to school without fear of concern for their safety. The Jewish community has the right to practice their faith publicly and loudly. So much of what we heard from Judy's poetry came from her faith. The wonderful Hallelujah verse by that incredible Canadian writer. So much of his work came from his Jewish faith. And let me be clear about this as well, that the Jewish community has the right to proudly declare its support to Israel, which is the home of half of the Jews on the planet and the ancestral homeland of all Jewish people. Just a couple of months ago, I traveled to Israel, sat with families of those brutally taken from us on October the 7th, and visited Kibbutz Be'eri. As difficult as it was incredibly important to me to go back and sit in the same kitchen where I had spent many afternoons drinking cups of tea with Canadian Jewish friends and talking about peace. Except we were standing in the middle of a burnt-out kitchen, and our friend was no longer with us to make tea. But as difficult as it was incredibly important to be there, and I will return often, and we'll be going back soon. Often people ask me a rather strange question, I find, but I'll share it with you. They ask me why, as a person who is not Jewish, why did I take this job? There are so many answers to that question. Maybe first and foremost, it's because I'm a Canadian, and because this is Canada, and because I love Judaism, because I love Israel. I refer to Israel as the miracle that is Israel. And because I have seen the incredible contribution that the Jewish community has made here in Canada and around the world. It was the most exciting time as a Canadian ambassador to have represented the incredible country of Canada to the incredible potential that is Israel. It was dancing every day with diplomacy and opportunity and creativity and commitment. And perhaps most importantly, history has shown us the terrible and unspeakable things that happen when societies allow anti-Semitism to grow and exist. This is about the Jewish community, of course, but it is about all of us, and it is about the country Canada. This is a crisis moment, and I am sorry that it is our Jewish community that has to help lead us through this crisis moment. But I am honored to stand here with you. It is about the democracy in our country. It is about rights and freedoms and responsibilities. It is about national and international security. I will be attending a conference in a couple of weeks in Europe with the Organization of Security and Cooperation for Europe. And the theme of the conference will be anti-Semitism and international security. It is not just an erosion of democracy, it is a threat to the world security. And it is about certainly learning the lessons of history. This is why we must collaborate to strengthen and promote Holocaust education and remembrance. And here I have some good news to share. My own province of New Brunswick has just this week announced mandatory Holocaust education for grade 7 in the English schools. And we are so proud that New Brunswick joins the large majority of Canadian provinces who have now committed to mandatory Holocaust education, and very much with the incredible leadership of Minister Lecce from our provincial government here as chair of the Council of Canadian Ministers of Education, where the discussion about mandatory Holocaust education is taking place, where we are now also talking about embedding with that contemporary anti-Semitism, where we will be working incredibly devotedly, dedicated, very hard over the next year to ensure that in the fall of September 25th, we will have robust mandatory Holocaust education in the majority of schools across Canada, if not all. A few more provinces to work with. And we will be working with many Holocaust education providers, many of whom are here in Toronto, to ensure that the provinces have this substantive curriculum. And we will add to that, because we must, after what we've seen since October 7th, that it is not just about the kids, it's about the adults in the school system as well. And so anti-Semitism training for school boards and faculty and teachers will also be a top priority. Places of learning, most particularly our universities, must encourage civil discussion and debate on dissenting views, but absent of hate speech and intimidation. These are meant to be places of learning, not arenas for intimidation, which we have seen in the last 5 months. As Special Envoy, I am also working with the Ministers of Advanced Education, Minister Dunlop here, of course, across the country as well, with educators and university presidents, and of course Hillel, and our different organizations on campus, and our Jewish faculty on the campuses, to foster an environment on campuses that rejects intolerance and embraces the principles of equality and respect for the Jewish community and all Canadians. And 2 quick positive stories for you. This week, Rachel and I participated in the launch of the Network of Engaged Canadian Academics, which is some 200 professors across the country, largely Jewish, but many non-Jewish, in 27 different campuses, with the absolute intention of working to ensure strong curricula on the Holocaust and strong curricula on Jewish studies and on anti-Semitism. We should make sure, Rachel, that that whatever newsletter the synagogue has, that we get you information on that and on their website, because you're going to be wind in your sails. It's going to make you feel good. I'm very proud of them. And I was with Simon Wiesenthal this week with Mike Levitt, who I'm sure many of you know, and talking to them about the work they're doing in the classrooms and other arena, especially with police, by the way, where a lot of training is going on. And Michael told me, with regard to universities, that in the last couple of months, they have had many university administrations, not just here in Ontario, but across Canada, get in touch with their center to have them do anti-Semitism training for the executive at the university campuses. This is a very positive step, and we're going to continue to build on that. I'm sorry to put you through so much work tonight and all this homework about what we're doing, but I've got you in front of me, so I have to tell you. I'm almost done, because this is a really important part. A critical part of my mandate as Special Envoy and the work that Rachel does is to support and promote the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. Not everyone agrees with everything in that definition, but that definition has been approved by our Parliament, all parties in the Parliament, and it has been approved and endorsed by most of the provinces across Canada. It comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, and it is absolutely critical and has been adopted by the 35 countries who are part of the alliance. Some of our municipalities have adopted it, not enough. We might want to speak to some people about that at City Hall. And a number of organizations have, but more work to do. We will not be intimidated from promoting a gold standard definition. It's non-binding, it's an educational definition for contemporary anti-Semitism. We will not be intimidated from promoting this definition by others who do not believe that the Jewish community has a right to define their own oppression, their own harassment, how that manifests itself and how it feels. Stay tuned. We are developing an IRA definition handbook that we will be consulting in the coming month, and it is my aim to see it published before the green grass grows this year. It's long overdue. It will cause a bit of a firestorm of debate and discussion, but that's not bad. That will be healthy for the country as we discuss and think through all of this and update people's understanding of what anti-Semitism truly is. Now, many of you may know Dara Horn, the wonderful author, and her incredible recent book, People Who Love Dead Jews. I wanted to read you several parts from it, but Rachel told me I couldn't. But she did say that I could refer to a speech that, but I will tell you, if you have her book, check page 106 and 107 for the best description I have ever read. And since Rachel said I can't do it tonight because it would make the speech too long, it is on my Instagram. I videotaped it. But it is the best description of why it is so important for us to support the Jewish people in our society, what it means for freedom, what it means for responsibility. It is powerful. In addition, at the Anti-Defamation League conference a couple of weeks ago in New York that Rachel and colleagues attended, Dara spoke incredibly well. And so my team said I had to share that with you and paraphrase her quote. Most particularly, as she said, Canadian Jews have reached our Queen Esther moment. We have no choice but to rise to the occasion. Our adversaries have already discovered that it only takes a few loud voices to pass a discriminatory resolution at a school board meeting, to shout down someone in a city council office, to slander someone online, or even to bring about the firing of some of our Jewish professionals. Many of us here today, including me, are in positions of leadership, and all of us have the power of our voices. Each of us has our own spheres of influence, our social and professional circles. This is our Queen Esther moment. It is time to be brave and time to organize and act and speak up. And I will share with you one other personal observation that I have made after a very, very difficult week. That when the spirit collapses or fails you, and even the counsel of a good friend or a wonderful rabbi or a colleague still can't get your spirits and your energy back up. What I have found is if I get back to work, if I do something that pushes it forward, that helps me feel that I am persevering, as Esther and Mordecai did, that I am contributing to that positive back wave against the tsunami that we faced. That's what lifts my spirits and keeps me going. So we do it for the cause, we do it for others, but we do it because that's what fills our soul. So as Special Envoy, I want to assure you that you will not be alone. I will stand with you, and so will my small but very persistent team. Other allies we are gathering to stand with us as well, and we will continue finding more and more who will look at what is happening in our country and finally realize that what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews, and that our democracy and freedom around the world is indeed on the line. Part of what was so joyful about being the Canadian ambassador to Israel was that I was able to get much closer to the Jewish community. So I can say with great strength and conviction that Canada is a better place thanks to our Jewish community. Whether it's hospitals like Mount Sinai here in Toronto or the Jewish General in Montreal, the cultural institutions that make Toronto a world-class city, Leonard Cohen's words that still keep us going. The contribution of Jewish individuals in every field, from science to arts, from philanthropy to academic world, the Jewish community deserves not just the support, the gratitude of every Canadian. Many Canadians want to help, but they don't know how, and this is where we all come in. I know it's hard, and I certainly know it's exhausting, and I know I'm wearing you out a little bit tonight, and I know that it is painful, and I know that it is even a little bit dangerous, and I know that personally. And I know it isn't fair to ask this of all of you, of all of us, but this is our Queen Esther moment, and we will seize it. Thank you so much for finally getting me to Temple Sinai. Rachel has been telling me about it for so long. I hope to come back and tell you more about the progress that we are determined to make, and would love to work with all of you in whatever way you feel we should be moving forward. Thank you so much, and bear with me one more time. Hug Purim Samer, and Am Israel Hai. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Special Envoy. And the Special Envoy mentioned that since she had us in front of her, there were certain things she has to say. We have a lot to do tonight, so we're about to move into the fastest Havdalah service in the history of Judaism. But no, it's not about you. But before we do that, just having a representative of the federal government in front of us, I am going to say that we are really grateful that you've been to Europe for us and that you've been to all the different provinces and so many different places, and that you've been so many times to Israel. And after this week, we're also willing to go with you to our own parliament to remind them that stopping hate is more important than counting votes.